this evening. I'll try to get notes on that and see what I can relay to you folks at a later time on that one. But Vanderbilt actually stands a better chance against Patrick for lieutenant governor than Davis does against Abbott for governor. And Vanderbilt is going to have a very hard time winning her election against Patrick. Patrick is gaining more and more support on a daily basis as far as actual voter support. Now, when you're talking about monetary support, different story. But as usual, the Democrats are trying to outspend the Republicans 2 or 3 to 1. Of course, they say that the Republican Party is, rich old white folks. Well, if that were true, then the campaign spending would be quite the opposite, wouldn't it? So, we have that kind of stuff going on, folks. In the meantime, we have all kinds of things. I can start talking about our good old Looney Liberals. We have a good Looney Liberal segment for you, which kind of also combines in. Of course, we just talked about 2 Looney Liberal segments there. But of course, we have our favorite Looney Liberal Ditzy Debbie, Wasserman Schultz. She's at it again, using her same rhetoric, making false accusations of alleging spousal abuse or abuse of women, physical abuse of women, to conservative candidates who are looking to beat her friends. And of course, every time she does this, the DNC becomes less and less and less enamored with her. How she was the DNC chair for so long, I don't know, other than the fact that she's just dumb enough to be kept in line by the rest of the party. That's the only thing I can get. Well, the audio of this is not that great, so you're going to have to listen closely, folks. But take a listen to what Ditzy Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and I meant to play this on Friday, by the way, but our conversation with Liz was going so well. But she uses the same kind of rhetoric towards another Republican candidate.
Making sure that we can help voters answer that really important question over the next 70 days, who has my back? When they ask themselves that question, they will consistently say, Charlie Crist and Democrats will have my back, and Rick Scott is giving.
Yeah, so giving the back, instead of giving the hand up, giving the back side of the hand. That's her little comments here, because she wants people to have her back. Well, Debbie, the only person that should really, really be having that back is your husband, because I don't know about him, but if I were in his place, I dang sure couldn't look at the front. I don't know if I could look at the back with that hair. But anyway, not getting off the shallow comments of looks and that nasally, disgusting voice of hers. Why do Democrat women all have that same nasty, nasally voice that makes you just want to tune them out? Why do they sound like your typical, stereotypical henpecking wife, the one that henpecks their husbands? Why do they always sound like that cackle, that nasal cackle? All of them. Hillary, Pelosi, Wendy Davis, Wasserman Schultz, they all have that same quality, that tone in their voice. That just makes you want to tune them out, makes you want to put it on your headphones and jam out some Tool or Perfect Circle or AC/DC, or heck, you go with some death metal, speed metal, just to drown out the sound of that nasally voice. I mean, heck, you put on something that even you don't like. I know some people like rap. I tend not to like it, so I'd put that on rather than listen to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Although there are some rap tunes I do like quite a bit. One of these days I may even play one for y'all. Like something by Soldier Hard. But just not today, folks. Remind me in the future I owe you a tune by Soldier Hard. Anyway, yeah. So Ditzy Debbie is continuing down her same line of rhetoric, she's trying to declare the war on women that does not exist, that's supposedly being waged by Republicans, which it only exists in her mind and her rhetoric and does not exist in reality, in people's real actions and their real voting records. So, What she's saying is, hey, you're not giving women free shit thinking that you've bought them and now own them, so that they owe you a big favor by paying them off with taxpayer money. That's what Debbie Wasserman really means. And you want to support women, then you need to support women just like men to be able to go and earn things on their own without being dependent upon a sugar daddy to keep them fed and keep them afloat and get them to earn equitable wages. Let them earn all that on the merits of their own productivity. If a guy and a girl go for the exact same job, let's say I have two positions available, and the guy's able to get a higher salary through negotiation, well, maybe she should have negotiated harder. Because I do know of cases where the exact opposite is also true. So it just boils down to, some people will settle for a job they won't hold out for that higher paycheck because they're happy just to get a job or just have the stability and security of having a job. Or they're a breadwinner for the family, so they need a job more than they need to hold out and for a day or two or three or a week more trying to negotiate for that higher paying position or same position with a higher pay. So there's all sorts of reasons, and it's not necessarily tied to gender, although certain sociologists and psychologists can probably give me reasons why it could be tied to gender, but it's not the fault of the employers per se. When you do salary negotiations and somebody agrees on a salary, that's what they agreed on. That's why you also usually have to sign a non-disclosure agreement where you don't talk about how much you make to your fellow workers who may or may not be making as much. Some may be making less, some may be making more. Oh, by the way, Wasserman Schultz pays her female workers staffers less than she pays her male. Just throwing that one out there, folks. So, want to talk a war on women? Yeah. Guess who's waging a war against the women who work for Miss Wasserman Schultz herself? So there's one loony liberal story. Another loony liberal story, of course, goes into our ongoing story about ISIS and what's going on with that, folks. And some of us actually dealt with the Islamic State, or ISI, as they were formerly known, have dealt with them for years and know a little bit about what they're about. So what's being said currently about our illustrious leaders in the federal government?
You don't have a right to know everything in a separation of powers government, my friend. That is the difference between a parliamentary government and a separation of powers government.
Well, there you have it, folks. There's actually people out there, statists out there, who believe they're allowed to keep information from us. Well, here, folks, is one such case where there was information that was held from the general public that the general public really didn't need to know back when the intelligence community knew this stuff. The people fighting on the ground and the decision makers needed to know the information, but your average American didn't need to know. And if they had known, then word could have gotten out to the wrong people, and we could have lost our ability to gather this information to be able to keep people safe. So this is one of those cases where I could almost agree with Eleanor Holmes Norton, but I usually don't. But since good old Obama has decided to talk about some of this stuff, that means some of it must be declassified, right? So that means I can talk about the same stuff and let you know a little bit about the truth. Now, Obama went on 60 Minutes, and of course I have the link in my program notes there to the CBS News story. He went on 60 Minutes to talk about the Islamic State and what happened and what mistakes were made, and to admit mistakes. That's all nice. He admitted his mistake. But of course it wasn't his mistake. It was somebody else's mistake, not his, which is not true. Now, it may have been somebody else's as well, but he's ultimately responsible, so tough took us, guy. We, those of us who were in the know at the time know that you're kind of lying now. You just didn't want to listen to the people who actually knew what was going on, because you knew better than we did. But Obama admitted that him and the rest of his arrogant statists and oligarchs actually underestimated the Islamic State and their ability to reconstitute and come back. Now, folks, I was dealing with these guys. They had kind of come to rise as the political and, in quotes, legitimate arm of Al-Qaeda Iraq, and kind of trying to overarch an umbrella over Ansar al-Sunnah, another terrorist group in Iraq, as well, to kind of bring them together with a legitimate arm that kind of said, politically, we're going to stand up for the beliefs that you guys have in common, although they do have things that they weren't in common. But there also were indicators that on some operations they would work together because they had a common enemy, us and your legitimate Iraqi people who wanted their own government, not a theocracy, and didn't want Sharia law, didn't want that brand of extremism. So all of us were the enemies of all of them, meaning the Islamic State, Ansar al-Sunnah, and Al-Qaeda Iraq, as well as the Al-Qaeda affiliated separatists in Syria. Now, we weren't big fans of Assad and Syria's Ba'athist regime, because it's the same regime, very close allied with a very similar ideology and political structure to Saddam Hussein's form of National Socialism, which is the Ba'ath Party is National Socialism. So many of the former regime elements from Iraq had fled into Syria because they knew that they had a government there that would protect them in Syria, because they're all National Socialists. Just like, if Nazis had fled to Italy or fascists had fled Italy to Nazi Germany to be protected during World War II, so to speak. It's the same kind of mentality. Because that same government, hey, this one's starting to fall here, we're starting to lose militarily, let's go where we can save our necks. Well, that's what happened with the former regime. So you actually had two groups that we didn't like fighting against each other in Syria. For the most part, you had the Baathists versus the Islamic extremists. Which side do you hope wins? Well, you hope they annihilate each other, and you just want to contain the violence. And that's the way it is, folks. That's reality. If evil battling against evil, you just let them duke it out. Just make sure it doesn't spill outside their borders. Of course, it was spilling outside the borders and spilling into Iraq as well, because look at what ISI did. They started retaking Iraq, And the thing is, they had planned to do this before we even left Iraq. We knew they were planning to do this back in 2006, 2007. We were pounding them pretty good. We had the surge going, and we had interrupted their or disrupted what we called their puddle splash tactic or strategy, and that was our nickname for it. Because, folks, what we would do is we would see that they were rising up and gaining too much power and having too much command and control, too many command and control elements in one area. So we'd surge forces in that area, kind of like a giant stomping in a puddle. So we'd smash it, and they'd all squirt apart, and then they'd gather together and reformulate and reconstitute in another area and resume operations. So we'd squash that area, and they'd squirt to another. We squash that one, they'd squirt to another. Then we'd squash that one, they go back to the first one. And that's what they were doing. So it was like playing whack-a-mole, trying to figure out where they were rising up. And as soon as you see the head come up, we'd stomp, instead of just smashing all of them at once. So that's what the surge was intended to do. So they were very smart, and a lot of them scattered. And some of them went into Syria and formed their groups there. Other ones went other places. Other ones just stayed in the shadows, but released very public statements as the Islamic State. And we knew that they were just going to bide their time and wait for us to leave. Well, Obama got elected in 2008, took office in 2009, and very quickly announced that he was going to start a withdrawal policy from Iraq. So they just knew they just had to wait. Collect their money, collect their equipment, collect their supplies, and wait. And eventually the U.S. would be gone, and then they could start plotting and planning. And that's exactly what they did. And we knew about this. We told them. We warned them we, the intelligence community, warned them of this in 2006 and 2007. We warned them again in 2008. And then Obama took over in 2009. We were still warning them. I was in Iraq, and I was working with the Iraqi National Forces, helping to train them. And I said, hey, and they were asking, I was like, they're not ready to face that, because we leave, we're going to be facing a formidable foe in the Islamic State, and Al-Qaeda Iraq and Ansar al-Sunna, and they're not going to be able to face it. We pull out, they're going to get squashed. I flat out said it. And I wasn't the only one, folks. By and large, the majority of the intelligence community was saying that. So this was no underestimation, not by the intelligence community. This was an underestimation by Obama and his cronies, period. So that's my whole statement regarding to rebut Obama. We knew, you refused to listen to us. And that, of course, by you I mean Obama, refused to listen to us. So there's that. Well, folks, the show is kind of winding down, so I just gave you my little 2 cents to rebut or rebuke Presbo with his little statement on 60 Minutes there. And you can go ahead and listen to his full clip and read what he had to say over on the CBS site. And then if you want to look at other Looney Liberals, real quick, folks, I do want to talk about this one. U.S. Representative from Virginia, and he's retiring at the end of his term this year. But talking about Moran. Well, guess what, folks? Speaking about Islamic extremists, Moran is receiving an award from CAIR, C-A-I-R, which is I forget exactly what CAIR stands for, but they're an Islamic kind of lobbying group for the Islamic religion, for the Muslims, which is all fine and dandy. I have no problem with your run-of-the-mill generic Muslims. I don't. I know other people do. But I do have problems with the extremists, especially the ones who want to take a perversion of Islam or select portions that may not be in line with the true nature of Islam out of the Quran, picking and choosing their little phrases here, and wage war against people who may not be of the same belief. I do have an issue with that. I think it's actual heresy within their religion, but I'm not a member of their religion. I don't know per se. But this organization is known for financing Hamas and other Islamic extremist terrorist groups, and they're giving Moran an award for supporting them. So basically they're giving an award for supporting terrorism. Enjoy that, folks. There's another one from your Looney Left. So that kind of rounds us off with our Looney Left for Monday and our Looney Leftists and Looney Liberals. But I do want to kind of finish out a little bit with, we talked about this on Friday, Liz and I. We talked about the Chuck Norris commercial that the NRA did up for their Get Out the Vote campaign, or Trigger the Vote, they call it. Well, here's the one that we actually brought up with a father and son. And at the end, when the father opens up what looks like a lockbox for a pistol, remember what I mentioned, what was inside of it. What's inside of it is a voter's card. So as this father and son are discussing things, they're going through emotions as though he's showing him a prized pistol locked in his closet. What he's really showing him is his voter registration card. So keep that in mind, folks, as you listen to the audio, and then you can go over and actually to BuzzPo and actually see the video. It's posted there, or you can go to the NRA's Trigger the Vote on YouTube and see it.
Remember, this isn't a toy.
I know, Dad.
This is serious business.
I understand. Why do you have it?
Well, it's important that I protect our family and our rights.
Does everyone have one?
No, but they should.
When will I get one?
When you get old enough, I'll take you to get your own.
I'm really proud of you, Dad.
And right there, folks, the son has a point, and that, of course, is that if you don't vote and don't exercise your right to vote, to exercise your little voice in the running of our country, then you're pretty much giving up the same rights and freedoms as though you are unwilling to defend it through other means, including the Second Amendment, etc. Well, folks, that